That's one of the things that people ask, because, probably around that same time, because it's about the same age I had my own band in this area, and I was able to gig, 5-6 nights a week, and I did my own shit. And I could add tunes to the set list. I really need to really work on stuff with these kind of chord changes because I don't really know those. So I'll just add that into the set. I would do that all the time. I would add in things I wanted to work on, and I got paid for doing it. So yeah.
Where were you playing? So you were playing like Milwaukee, Madison, Chicago, Evanston kind of vibe?
Yeah, and then northern Wisconsin, a bunch of stuff in northern Wisconsin, occasionally over to Minneapolis and repeat. It was an interesting thing. We moved a couple of years ago, and I got a bunch of boxes in the basement. I started going there, and I started seeing my schedule for those years, and it was literally the same clubs over and over and over for years.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you could tell, oh no, we got this little tour where we were here, there, we were in Colorado, or we went down to, St. Louis or Memphis or something. And other than that, same places over and over again. This club in Minneapolis, this club in Madison, this club in Stevens Point, this club in Green Bay, the Milwaukee ones over and over again. But that was the thing. And then at one point I just I got to get out of here if I'm going to make some grown-up money.
Yeah. So what did you do after, what did you do after that?
Well, what was interesting is that when my wife and I got married when I was 27.
Oh, same as me. Same as.
And all of a sudden, by 28, we're like, hey, we're going to have a Bambino. And so I was kind of Mr. Momming it for the first few years for our first couple kids. I gigged, I did my thing. I did some sessions, you do. And I started doing some jingle stuff down in Chicago, which was cool and whatnot. And then the Fender thing came. So what happened was I was in a club. These guys from Fender Guitar saw me play. They're like, hey, we should get you out and about. We should write you up in this magazine and maybe have you do some clinics. I'm like, great. Because every time I tried to get any kind of record deal or, kind of massage any of those levers, they were like, stand back, big fella. I'd always get, how old are they and what do they look like? I remember I heard that all the time. Well, we're shit up. We got the age part, we're not too bad, but the look part, probably not going to happen. and the fact that we did all this, it was always, and we had vocals in the band, but it was this kind of bluesy, funky. It was probably the closest thing would be like Little Feat. And as we know, Little Feat is a great band that everyone loves, but not exactly, historically hugely successful.
Well, it's funny. They're one of those bands that they're incredible. And the more you listen to them, the more incredible they get. But then I think they were struggling to be.
Yes.
Everyone loved them. All the very successful people loved them. So they played all these gigs. It was like, you book these or else kind of vibe, But yeah, I totally get it.
So what happened for me is at one point my wife, she's a graphic designer, and she got a really good gig at this agency, and they were designing packaging for all of these, big clients like, Kraft Foods and Miller Beer and this, that. I could go into a grocery store at one time and say, look, it's stovetop stuffing. My wife did that. And I thought that was very special.
Yeah.
And it was cool. Of course. But then at one point she's like, you know what? I don't like working at this place anymore. I'm going and I'm getting, can you fire up your thing? So I was like, what do you mean fire up my thing? I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. There's only so much firing up that can be done. So the Fender thing seemed like it was the way to kind of get out and about a little bit more. So it was kind
of a good hustle, man.
Well, what happened was and they were weird. They were always doing this to me. It was kind of like, it's like, it only gets so close. Come, but don't. And so at this one NAMM show, they had me debut this amp, and I had worked up a bunch of cool ways. I had some background tracks, and I had some cool ways of using this amp in a weird way. And I could talk, and they didn't really I guess they kind of had an inkling I could talk. But I debuted this amp. I said, hey, this is really cool. You can do this. It's kind of fun, and you can play this. And I would play this stuff and talk about. And from there on, they gave me this budget that was commensurate with being able to, at least for a year at that point, be able to sustain the home front. And then right at the same time, I got a record deal with Steve Vai's label, which really wasn't a good financial thing for me, but was a good kind of suspension of disbelief thing in terms of.
Got you.
I mean?
Yeah.
And then
it got you to the next step, whatever the next step was. Exactly. Even if that next step ended up making you have to take 2 steps backwards, it got you to the next step.
And then the Hal Leonard thing happened. So I had the Hal Leonard book deal that worked, and so I co-wrote the Hal Leonard guitar method with the original author. They wanted to have a little bit of youthful blood involved. So,
oh, wow.
Because of that, I mean, that's like, the first book everyone gets to learn how to play guitar. And so that worked out.
Sure.
And then I did a bunch of other stuff. So that kind of just went from there. So it's always been this thing of putting out records and touring with the band, but also being able to do this kind of corporately sanctioned thing, even though I was never an employee of any of those companies.
Yeah. That's an ill part of it. Like you're still, it doesn't matter how far you get in this hustle, you're still the help.
Exactly.
You're still, even if you're like the face of something, you're still the help. You don't have health insurance. You don't have stock options. It's just like, hey man, no. You load in near the dumpster in the back of your door like everybody else,
Although I will say, since we're doing our Wildwood thing, the Wildwood thing has been, of all the things I've ever done, and I'm not saying this to be some kind of sycophant, but what was weird is that this is going back like 8 years now. I got a call from Steve from Wildwood Guitars, and I had done a Fender clinic out there. For a while, I was doing these full band things. So I would go into a place, and it was Roscoe Beck on bass and Tom Reckline on drums.
Oh,
and
nice.
Come in and rock people's brains.
Oh, hell yeah.
Fender loved it. The stores loved it. So we did one of these out at Wildwood Guitars, and Steve always remembered that. And so I got a call about 8-9 years ago now. And he said, hey, I got this idea. We're going to do these videos. And, all the different manufacturers are going to supply guys. And we thought it'd be cool for you to come out for Fender. And, we're going to do these videos where you just grab a guitar and play it. And then, maybe talk about it if you liked it or not. But, just whatever you feel like doing, but kind of run the guitar through its paces. So I'm like, okay. So I remember the first time I went out, Fender actually paid my expenses. And then Wildwood was going to pay my fee. And it was just like a one-day thing. So I came out and I went into this kind of soundstage they have. Steve had all these cool amps behind him. He had Ford Dumbles and Marshalls and all kinds of. And I sat down on this chair, and he handed me this custom shop Telecaster, and he's like, "Oh, this is based." And on the screen they had, what the guitar was, the serial number, and the weight. That's all that was on the screen. They said, "So here you go, just play and see what happens." So I grabbed this guitar, I plugged it in, and I started off on the neck pickup and did some stuff. And then, did that with all 3 pickups, talked a little bit. And after I got done with that one video, he gets up and he comes over and he says, "Can I hire you to do this?" I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I will fly you out here every month to do these videos." I go, "Kind of like a job?" And he's like, "However you want to think about it." And what was so wild about that is that all the years I had done the Fender thing, and I did all kinds of stuff for him, flew all over the world for him, did all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
There was never any guarantees. There was never any kind of, set amount of work. There was no retainer. Yeah. It was kind of like, this is it. Take it or leave it. And I did it was enough where I kind of enjoyed the loose affiliation because I could do whatever I want. But as my kids got older, I was like, I need a little something that's a little bit more secure.
Of course. Yeah.
And they just wouldn't do it. So now all of a sudden this guy out in Colorado says, "Come out every month and do these videos." I'm like, okay. And I started coming out every month. And then all of a sudden at one point I was like, I like other guitars too. I like Gibsons and Paul Reed Smith. So I started doing all those other videos as well. And I got to tell you, out of all the stuff I've done from prior to that, from, the Fender thing and having the different record deals up to that point and the guitar magazines and having columns and all that other kind of stuff, it all paled in comparison to the videos I've done for Wildwood because there's no middleman. People just in the middle of the night are online, and there's 5,000. It's probably more than that now of these videos out there, and so people can just see these videos. And I'm kind of playing my own tunes. I'm doing little quotes from various different people, but not too much as to not get any copyright trouble. But that, it's like one of those things is like we're talking about as musicians. It's like you never know what's going to be the thing that kind of elevates you to the point where, I love going out there. And of course I haven't gone out there because of COVID, but I'm doing these types of things from home But it's weird. I could say and play whatever I want within reason. Obviously I'm not going to go off on some kind of controversial diatribe during. Right. But it's been fantastic. So, and it's been one of those things where, as a musician, you never know what's the thing that all of a sudden, I guess they want you to do that, and you like it and you do it. And all of a sudden, you got couple of ducats to rub together.
You're so right, man. It's like people at the level that you're playing, and it's the same with me. It's the same with everyone that we know. You bust your ass, you have the calling, you get in there, you sacrifice, you push the van uphill with the brake on, with people throwing garbage at you, and you still do it every day. Yeah. Right? But the thing people don't realize is when you're young, you're like, yes, I'm going to take over the world with my mastery.
Yeah, exactly.
Watch out, world. Here I come. Exactly. It's just like, boy, I'm going to show them. And then, you've essentially been learning how to swim in a very calm swimming pool. You jump into the world of making a living as a musician, and it's like, wow, these are raging rapids. And I'm not as good of a swimmer as I thought. Okay, let me grab onto this branch,
Exactly.
And that's the thing. It's like, it's the hustle, and you get in where you fit in, you stay creative, and you make the hustle, whatever your hustle is, work. And man, I've been driving a van for 30 years. I'm a driver. That's what I do. I'm a driver, and then I get out and play at the end of the day. Yep. You know what I mean? And I have friends that are better than me or at certain things or whatever, and they have had wildly different hustles. Some of them are in the teaching hustle, and they teach in these, music schools. Right. Some of them are I play for the big rock star hustle. Some of them are I gave up this shit hustle. Right. You know what I mean? But it's people don't understand it's a hustle. And like the people that come on your Instagram or Facebook and demand from you like you're a dancing monkey. It's just like, hey, guess what? You should be thanking me. I mean, I don't want to be in that kind of way, but because I don't think there's anyone really more thankful than musicians who get to get up every day and work on this. You know what I mean? Absolutely. But it is people also need to know that it's a deep hustle. Whatever the hustle we find or whatever hustle finds us, it doesn't end.
Well, and I always like to say too, and I try not to make it sound like Bittersville.
Yeah, right.
Because I'm not. I'm enormously grateful for what I get to do. I've made it to age 54. I'm comfortable in my own skin. When I wake up in the morning, I'm just glad I'm waking up in the morning because I look back at so many friends that are dead. Yeah. So I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm good. But at the same token, when people they're obsessed, fans of music, especially with the best or who's that's criminally underrated. And I just go, you know what? You need to understand that sometimes brilliance gets rewarded with success, but that's not the rule. Most of the time, it's just got to be good enough, and whatever takes it over the edge is completely non-meritocracy, other than brute force and guile. And
exactly.
And people just have a hard time with that. And it's not being bitter, but it's the fact. That's not to say that there aren't some exceptions of people that are just absolutely brilliant that became extraordinarily successful. But most of the time, that's just a coincidence.
Yeah, well, it's true. And it also comes out of that narrative. It's the linear career narrative that's being projected upon people like us who have a totally nonlinear, wild reality, Right. And so their concept is, well, wait a minute, I'm in sales, and Johnny over there, he sold way more than me, so he has more shit than I have, and it's linear. So what they do is they look at someone, well, wait a minute, I mean, Greg Koch that's one of the baddest guitar players I know. That's like my favorite thing, but he can't be as good as the guy in Flock of Seagulls because they're so much bigger than him. So and good is in music is a relative concept, of course. Right. But it creates this cognitive dissonance, and I think most people just say they just can't deal with it. I'll tell you a story. There was a time when we were I had a group that the jam band kids kind of liked. So we got a lot of those gigs, and those guys got money. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, I'm not going to say no to this. And we were opening up for a band, which will go unnamed because, again, no bitterness either. Like, it's how they figured out a way. And they're beautiful people. They could barely play. I mean, they really had a hard time. They just didn't understand music like on a kind of the level you need to understand it to be able to harness the narrative of it, you know?
Sure.
And, you know, and they kept wanting me to sit in, and I kept trying to not sit in, to be respectful though. But one night I kind of had to, and it was rough, man. It was definitely like, it was rough. And it was funny. Their road manager, super smart woman, really sharp and everything. She came up to me, like put a hand on my shoulder, and she's like, "It's okay. You'll learn it someday. You'll learn how to play like them someday."
Pretty please.
I was like, boy, I didn't say anything. I was like, yeah, thank you. You know, I was like, boy, I was thinking in my heart, like, boy, I hope not, because I don't mind the success thing. I mean, look, man, we have homes, we can eat, we can provide for our family, and every day we get to wake up and try to polish the turd a little more. You know what I mean?